And we are live. So, warm welcome to each and everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for looking forward to our Wednesday webinars. So, as mentioned from last Wednesday, we are we would like to we invited you to join us today for a new session, which we will bring you two new speakers and two new topics. And in this Let Us Talk It webinars, we do not bring just the information because information is everywhere. You can use even AI tools to locate the information that you needed, but the value that we bring to you are the personal experiences of the seasoned professionals that we bring into this platform and their the actual obstacles that they have overcame and the point of view of every challenges. And before we start, I'll just share it to you my screen real quick. All right, so let us talk it. You can check us. You can check our website on letustalkit.com, an informed and empowered community. So we do free knowledge sharing webinars. So everything is completely free. Even the Zoom links are free. You can join in freely from anywhere you are. And this is a not for profit collaboration initiative. So, and we do help, or we do have startup acceleration program as well, and youth webinars and workshops as well. For the youth workshop is about the public speaking skills, helping the young speakers to get more confidence and as they grow and learn. And these are the associated brands of Let Us Talk It. So Cogent is the main company that initiated Let Us Talk It webinar. So Cogent Integrated Business Solutions is an IT company based in Detroit, Michigan. And they just wanted to give back to the community. And the best way they thought of is giving back through free knowledge sharing because it's the value is different. And these are the food ecosystem as well related to Cogent and Let Us Talk It. And if you like the contents and informations that we share, definitely it would help us if you'd help us to spread the word as well and share our videos and the recorded videos. And also, it will help our guest speakers have additional visibilities and have their services be uh, taken advantage by those who need us. And also, we are available on social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can check us out, and then you can message us there if you wanted informations from the guest speakers that we have invited. If you're interested with their niche, with their services, and all of sorts. All right. So, and that's about a short intro. And as I am excited to share with you the first topic that we have today, which is how to be a good human resource for your team. So, today we will learn the basic rules of improv to better communicate, collaborate, and empathize with your teammates. With a handful of improv tools, you can find a faster path to psychological safety in a workplace. And with us is the director of client experience for improv team culture, and has performed improv internationally, worked in both of for-profit and non-profit HR for the past 10 years, and loves her daily walks with her dog Pretzel to start the day. And without further ado, let me introduce to you Jeanette Cerami for our first topic.
Thank you so much, Philjon. So, folks, I think human resources has gotten a bad rap. Recruitment, retention, insurance claims, resources more like the Hunger Games, forced fund potlucks once a month. Here's a piece of trivia. Where's my pay bump? Skills training, safety, parental leave. Imagine if you knew me, what we could achieve. Payroll, training, performance review. How about a connection between me and you? So that's a little taste of what you're going to get from me today. My name is Jeanette, as Philjon said, and I'm going to share with you the transformative influence improvisation has had on me in my personal and professional life. So I'm going to give you some tools that I have learned through improv that have helped me, and you can take them with you today and help your teams collaborate empathize, and listen to each other better in your work environment. So let's go back about 30 years on a quick trip. The year is 1990. I am cast as the Cowardly Lion in the Wizard of Oz play, and I am so nervous, okay? I had never been on stage before, and I had no idea what I was doing. My voice was shaking. I couldn't remember my lines. There were even a couple of times where I had to ask for my lines, and I was so nervous and so embarrassed. And then my moment came to shine. I took a step center stage, got into my position, and I started singing, "If I Were King of the Forest." And something magical happened. Everybody started to laugh at me. And it was this kinetic connection between me and the audience that I had through their laughter, through my performance, where in that moment we were sharing something really special. And I got addicted to it. And I knew that I wanted to connect to people like that for the rest of my life. So now, flash forward in my career, I have taken improv lessons, I've taken theater, college and post college, I've taught theater, I taught children's theater. And one of the things I kept coming back to was improv. So, improvisation was used as a warm up for scripted theater and later became a vehicle for comedy and performance in itself. So, I learned all of these techniques and tools in improv, and I was able to apply them regularly to my day jobs that took me into the human resources space. Because in theater, ultimately what we're doing is we're connecting with our audience, right? We're collaborating. I have a job to do, and that's to present to you, to make you laugh, to make you think, to make you feel. And your role as the audience is to agree to that and feel those emotions and have that experience, right? So ultimately, that is what I think that improv does in the workplace. I believe that we take that connection, that collaboration, and as a team in a workplace environment, we can have those connections. We can agree upon certain things. We can find a middle ground and we can work together. So in my improv, I was very fortunate, and it brought me into several roles in the human resources space. I found that because I love to connect to people and help people, the best way to do that in a corporate environment was to be in the human resources area. So I met the founder of Improv Team Culture, and she brought me into this great opportunity where I can merge my skills of improv performance, teaching, and training into my current role with Improv Team Culture today. And that's where we help teams communicate and collaborate better. We teach leaders how to lead with empathy and vulnerability, and we foster a healthier workplace environment. So now we're going to go back to what I've learned in improv that you can take away with you today. So whenever someone tells me that they aren't smart enough, clever enough, experienced enough to do improv, because it's really scary to get up in front of people and be vulnerable, I'm always reminded of this famous quote: "A jack of all trades is a master of none." Now, this is a quote a lot of us have heard, and many people think this is where the quote ends, and it kind of has a negative connotation to it. What you may not know is that there's a second half to this quote that is more important than the first, but oftentimes better than a master of one. And of course, it's from our wonderful William Shakespeare, that quote. Now, this quote is so important to me because it reminds me, and I try to help others remember with this quote, that we don't have to be a master of any one thing when we're going into something new. Any experience we go into, if we're collaborating with people, if we're working with a team, it's oftentimes better to be a jack of all trades, a Jill of all trades, to know a little bit about everything and to just show up with whatever you know. So we're going to start with the first tool to be a good human resource and help build trust in your workspace. And that is using this quote, understanding this quote, and knowing that and showing up authentically. So the first thing I learned in improv was to show up authentically, right? No matter what my experience level is, my knowledge base of whatever is happening in the scene on stage, I am just great with the knowledge I have showing up with, right? So if you are honest about where you are starting from, you're authentic with your teammates, no matter where it is in relation to other people or the department, you're already there, right? You're showing up, you're in the meeting already. So you've been welcomed to this meeting, you have been asked to contribute. So now contribute authentically. If you show up authentically and your insecurities slowly start to go away, it's something that is going to permeate everybody else in the team, in the collaboration, in the project. Okay. You showing up authentically is going to invite other people to show up authentically. Hey, I know a little bit about this. You know a little bit about that. Together, we know a lot about a lot more stuff, right? Once you're ready to open up to the experience, you're ready to learn, you're ready to collaborate, right? So the first thing we learn in improv is the rule of yes and. And this is saying that we agree on the reality in front of us. A lot of people mistaken this rule and think that it means that I am agreeing blindly and implicitly with whatever you say, but that is not the case. By saying yes, I am agreeing that you are showing up authentically and is me contributing and then showing up authentically and contributing what I have to contribute to the conversation. Um, I'd love to do an example of this. If anyone on the call is comfortable unmuting themselves, I promise I will take really good care of you. I'm simply going to ask you a couple of questions, and all you have to do is reply with yes. So, is there anyone on the call who would be willing to participate? Phil John? Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to demonstrate the difference between yes versus yes and. So all you need to do in this first part is say yes. So we're going to plan a party together, Phil John. Here in the United States, we just had Labor Day. So we're going to plan a Labor Day party together. I'm going to say some stuff. All you have to do is respond with yes. Okay. So let's have balloons at this party.
Yes.
And then after the balloons get here, let's bring a bunch of animals, like petting zoo animals.
Yes.
And then everybody has to wear a costume. So we're going to bring a bunch of costumes, and everyone has to put on a specific costume when they get here.
Yes.
And then we all have to learn how to do the salsa. It's a Latin American dance. We all have to learn that, and we're going to all dance together.
Yes.
All right, scene. Good job. Thank you so much. So, in that example, Phil John and I planned a party together, but did Phil John really have a say in what was going on in that party? Not really. I mean, I was doing the bulk of the work and he was being very supportive, right? Very positive. He was saying yes. But ultimately, it wasn't a collaboration. I was doing a lot of work. So you could see that as either I'm steamrolling and I'm doing too much of the work, or if Phil John isn't willing to contribute, maybe it's like he's putting too much work on me. So either way you look at it, it's not really a partnership. It's not really a team effort, right? So just saying yes to everything and accepting everything is not the same as accepting what the person is offering and then adding your offering. So we're going to do it one more time, Phil John, okay? We're going to let's plan an Arbor Day. We're going to plan an Arbor Day party. So Arbor Day here in the States is the celebration of planting new trees and nature and building up the ecosystem, okay? So this time, everything that one of us says, the other person is going to say yes and we're going to add something of our own to it. So one at a time, we'll say, let's do this thing, yes, and this thing, yes, and this thing, okay? So I'll go ahead and start first. No, actually, why don't you start first and I'll give an example of yes and.
Okay. So let's go get more guys to help us plant these seedlings.
Yes. And after we get the friends to help us, let's get some tools from the hardware store.
And we're gonna ask the neighborhood too if they have available seeds of good trees to plant.
Yes. And we'll make sure that we have a good variety by getting it from different people and building different things next to each other.
It would be beautiful if we line them up with the same variety.
Yes. And in doing that, we can kind of design what we want our neighborhood to look like.
Maybe the biggest trees are near the on the roadside, so to make it more green and healthy.
Perfect scene. Awesome. Thank you so much, Phil John. That was awesome. Thank you. So, a couple of things of note. So, even though Phil John didn't verbally say yes every time, did you notice the head nod? Because I definitely did. There was this head nod of, yes, I'm agreeing to whatever you are bringing to the table, and now I'm adding something else. So that felt more like a team effort, right? That definitely felt more like together we were planning something. Now, I personally don't know much about planning anything for Arbor Day. I've never done an event for Arbor Day. Phil John, I don't know if you've ever planned an event for Arbor Day, but we weren't, either of us wasn't individually responsible for the full load, right? We felt like the last thing said kind of inspired me to say something else to add to it. And so that is the beauty of yes and, okay? We're not ever putting all the work on one person. We're not ever taking all of the ideas and responsibility for ourselves. But with yes and, we're taking our teammates' experience, our teammates' knowledge, wherever our teammate is showing up from, and we're adding on to it with our contribution. And it's just a really great, fast way to contribute. So I welcome you in your next collaborative meeting experience to go into it with this mindset. Okay. Even if somebody says something that isn't necessarily in line with the idea you had, simply nodding your head, it psychologically changes your the way that you're going to take in that information, because you can't change anything that they've said. You can't tell them to not think that, to not feel that. But by saying, okay, I hear and receive how you're bringing yourself to this conversation, and now I'm going to contribute something too. So that is the accept and acknowledge step of these four tools that I'm going to show you today. So the first one is to show up authentically. And next we are accepting and acknowledging. And that's simply the yes and, okay? So going into any conversation, whether it's more difficult, likely it's going to be more difficult than planning an Arbor Day experience. But if no matter what the difficulty, the challenges, how you're showing up, as yourself, what you know, what you can contribute, and you're ready to accept and acknowledge everything else your teammates are bringing to you, okay? The next thing we're going to talk about is the tool finding the common ground. Now, this is a tool I learned as a warm-up exercise in improv, and it's a really fun way to quickly get on the same wavelength. We also call it group mind. Some people call it find the common denominator, okay? And so I want you to go into every experience with your team, with your collaborations and your projects thinking, all right, even if we want to start from different places, even if we have very different ideas of where this project needs to go, we can't be that different. And I will remind you as to why you cannot be that different. According to the National Human Genome Research Institute, humans share about 98% of their genetic makeup with this other organism. So we are almost identical DNA wise to a chimp, okay? And according to that same group of scientists, we are about 50% identical genetically with this organism. Isn't that bananas? If we're almost identical genetically to chimps and we share half of our genetics with a banana, we cannot be that different from our fellow human. Certainly, somebody who's working on a project or a team with us has more in common with us than this banana, right? So again, another idea I want you to think about and go into your team dynamics with is if you can find a common ground with a banana, if you can find a common ground with a chimp, certainly you can find a common ground with your teammates or your partners. Okay. All right, Phil John, I want to do another exercise. I'm not sure, depending on how many people we have that could put stuff in the chat, but I need two people to volunteer to put one word each into the chat. So can I get two volunteers to put, all you're going to do is put a word into the chat for me.
Put a word. Okay. Any word, or does it have to be related?
It's going to be any word, but I need two people to first volunteer, and then I will tell you on the count of three to put it into the chat.
Okay, let's try. Yeah, let's see. Anyone from the attendees who's willing to do a quick chat?
Elliot, awesome. Thank you so much, Elliot. Okay. Anyone else? It's going to be really easy. All you're going to do is be putting words into the chat.
Okay. Okay. I think Elliot and I.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to count down from three. And when I count down, I just want you to put one word in the chat. You're going to put it in there at the same time, no pre-planning. It can be any word, doesn't have to be inspired by anything or anything, right? So one word in the chat from Elliot and Phil John. 3, 2, 1, go. Ooh, okay. House and knowledge. Beautiful. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find the common ground. Okay. So for example, if one of you said red and one of you said yellow, the common ground probably obviously for a lot of people would be orange, right? Okay. So now we're thinking a little more abstractly than that. So we have the word house and we have the word knowledge. So what is a word that puts those two words together? What's the common word between those? And I'm going to invite everybody on the call to put a word, and I'm also going to put the word that I'm thinking of, and including Elliot and Phil John again. Okay. So now think of a word that is the common ground between knowledge and house. And I'm going to count down from 3, and we're all going to put our words in there. Okay. Ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Yes! Awesome. Oh my gosh. So we got two people saying library right away. That is so cool. I'm so excited when that happens. Phil John, I see your face beaming too. It's a really cool feeling to find the common ground, right? And you obviously saw that I got excited when that happened. And that's the feeling that we get when we find a commonality with somebody, right? When I'm on stage and you're watching me in the audience and I make you laugh, or when we have an idea and we're kind of trying to barter with each other on a project and figure out how we're going to make this work, and we come to the agreement together at the same time, right? It's this kinetic energy that we feel. And it's the same feeling that I got when I was a little kid on that theater stage. Every time that I'm on a stage doing improv comedy and I make people laugh and I make people feel catharsis, right? And it's because it's empathy. When we empathize with each other, our nervous system relaxes, okay? We find community, commonality, because if you can relate to somebody on the most basic emotional level like that, lets them know that we're alike, we're here for a common good, and we're in community. And that is where we get to that psychological safety that we talked about at the beginning of this. Okay. So I'm just going to break down a little bit what psychological safety is and how we are getting to it with these 4 tools that I've just showed you. So psychological safety, according to Abraham Maslow, in a paper, A Theory of Motivation, it's the survival needs that must be satisfied before the individual can satisfy their higher needs. Okay, so the higher up in the hierarchy, the more difficult it is to satisfy the needs. But once you get to all of them, you receive this self-actualization. So let's talk about this hierarchy. So physiological needs are the basic requirements for human survival, okay? Air, food, shelter, clothing, warmth, and sleep. Everybody needs them to survive. Those are our basic needs. Now we're going to move up to safety and security. So that is the need to have safety in numbers in society, school, employment. Okay, there's also emotional, financial security, which is where employment comes in. You get community and financial security from your employer, freedom from fear. All right, health and well-being is part of that. Then we have love and belongingness, which is, the need for interpersonal relationships, affiliating, connectedness, that feeling that we get when we empathize with people, when we're working together and we feel like we're all on the same page. Then we have esteem, and this includes self-worth, accomplishment, and respect. Okay, and so once these other needs are fulfilled, we have this self-esteem. We feel we're respected among our peers, in our family, in our community, and in our jobs. And then finally, when we get those bottom four, we get our self-actualization. And this is the realization of a person's potential, self-fulfillment. It's the drive that keeps us wanting to do better, to improve our own situation, to help improve the situations of others. All right. And so this all can be achieved once we have psychological safety. Now, I would argue that the top four tiers can and should be achieved at the place that you spend a third of your life. Half of your waking hours are at your workplace. So how do we achieve that? Well, we go back to those 4 rules of improv, okay? First, we show up authentically. We set boundaries for ourselves, okay? We let people know this is where I'm starting from. This is what I need at this time. Be gracious with yourself, okay? You can't know everything all the time. You're not always going to be the smartest person in the room. Conversely, be gracious with others. We're all learning. We're all doing this whole thing called life for the first and only time. So let's be gracious and let's show up authentically and invite others to show up authentically as well. Then we accept and acknowledge. Okay, we use that basic improv rule, that first most important rule of improv, which is yes and. I accept where you're coming from. I acknowledge, and I'm going to contribute too, because this is a team effort. We can't do anything in this world on our own. So let's work together and get there together. Finding the common ground, okay? Realizing that we have so much more alike than we do different. Even if we go into a situation and we know that we are at opposing ends of the spectrum in ideas and thoughts about it, remember, we're almost the same as a banana, so we can't be that different from our teammate. And finally, empathizing, okay? I think a lot of people use empathy and sympathy interchangeably, and I'm here to say that empathy is better and more like what we do normally than sympathize. We say people sympathize when they kind of know where you're coming from, and they empathize when they know exactly where you're coming from. Well, if you look at all of these emotions on this emotion wheel, we've all experienced these emotions at some point in our life, right? I know it's like feels like to be jealous, to be angry, to be excited. Even if I don't know the exact reason that you're feeling frustrated, I know what it's like to be frustrated. So I can empathize with that. And if I empathize with you and we share that emotion, that basic human emotion, our nervous systems relax. We feel a sense of community. And in that starts the groundwork for getting that trust and that psychological safety. Okay. So again, we show up authentically, we accept and acknowledge, we find the common ground, and we empathize. And what happens when we create psychological safety at work? People are more willing to use their voice for feedback, to give suggestions, to give celebrations, and to express frustrations honestly. Okay. So the father of improv said, if you don't know what to do next, fall, then figure it out on the way down. This is only possible if we create a psychologically safe environment for our teammates, right? When you have psychological safety as a safety net, you can fall and figure it out. And what you'll figure out when you fall is that your team and you have so much untapped potential and creativity to unleash. And that's just a sampling of the tools that I learned from improv that I take into my professional life. And I'm going to leave it here with you today that no matter what role, no matter what department you're in, no matter your experience level that you're starting from, you too can become a human resource for anyone on your team and anyone in your community.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. That was a really great
Thank you.
topic you have discussed with us today. And for more of this, I'd you can definitely get in touch with Jeanette. Uh, you can search her name on LinkedIn, send a connection invite, a private message, and she's very responsive. Definitely, if you're really interested to learn more in the depth of the improv techniques and will like additional things in relation to this topic. Now, I've checked live YouTube. We don't have any questions so far there. I'm checking with our attendees if they have any questions. And while they are doing so, if you can open your mic or you can type it in chat. Anything upcoming, Jeanette? You'd like to promote anything? Please go
Thank you
ahead.
so much, Phil John. Just a reminder that what we do at Improv Team Culture is we do speeches similar to this. We can do keynotes. We also do a lot of leadership training, team trainings to help people communicate better, collaborate, and empathize. So building leaders in the small departments or big on the bigger level, we'll work with leadership teams, whether it's a workshop or a speaker event, we're happy to do it. So our website is just our name.com, improvteamculture.com. Thank you.
All right, that's perfect. So don't forget that one, improvteamculture.com. So that's the website. And then like Let Us Talk It is like very open in terms of if you have trainees in terms of keynote or like they just wanted to talk in this kind of platforms, we're willing to take them for them to practice as well and also
Great.
express themselves. Yeah, just do let me know if there are anyone interested in your department. So yeah, okay, let's check. So no questions so far. Well, for me, it's very clear and crisp. The information that you wanted to deliver has been delivered, and I enjoyed the actual conversation exchange. So I hope the attendees could have experienced that feeling as well, exchanging the information. All right. So before we move to the topic, last call for any questions. Let's see, online YouTube. Anyone watching live, feel free to type your or put it on the comment section or in chat, and we'll definitely bring it to our speakers.
Elliot just posed a question, Phil John.
Oh,
Yeah, so how do you create an environment where feedback is constructive rather than critical? That is a really good question. So, in theater in general, and how I coach, I do also coach improv teams and I coach other professional teams as well. I think that focusing on positive is very important. Establishing if there is a is there if there's a leader of the group, maybe establishing that that leader is the person who is, I guess, allowed to give more critical feedback and reminding people that all feedback is good feedback if it's presented right. Okay, so being critical of somebody's work, right? Somebody's performance in a specific area is not comprehensive of the whole. So I think that that's important too, is making it clear that like, okay, this is just one piece of something that we're trying to improve upon. So if I give you critical feedback that doesn't feel great, it's not because I'm trying to push you down. I'm trying to improve as a whole. So I think framing it is really important. Some people don't take critical feedback as well as others, and there's a way to set the table, I guess is what we say, before you're giving that type of feedback, to say, this is not this one piece of feedback is not comprehensive of the whole. It is just specifically important for this to move forward. And then I don't personally love the compliment sandwich if it is just there to like fluff and ego. But I mean, there is something to be said about a compliment sandwich. Everything that the person is doing in a situation ideally isn't bad. If everything they're doing is bad, there's probably a bigger issue at hand than giving critical feedback on a performance or a project, right? So just kind of framing it that way, that these are the things that are working. This is a little bit of what we need to fix. And in theater, a lot of times directors will only give positive feedback because there is something chemically in our brains that, if we are working on the things that we're doing right, it's kind of going to push out the things that we're doing wrong. That won't always apply in a professional setting, I realize, but if it does, if there is a way for it to apply, to say, keep doing this thing, this is the thing that's really working, so keep doing more of that, and maybe try that tactic first. And then once you get to a place where you're like, I need to pinpoint the exact thing that's going wrong, just a quick reminder of, but these things are going right. And so this little thing needs to be tweaked, and then the whole is going to improve. I hope that makes sense.
I see. It did make sense. And I hope that makes sense, Ilya. Okay, yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much for asking that question. So we're a few minutes above the actual duration, but definitely it is a great topic. Thank you so much, Jeanette. And yeah, you can stay to collaborate with the next speaker if you wish to. And if you or anything you wanted to like urgent thing to do, you can drop off if you wanted to. But definitely, you're very welcome to stay. And we'll move to the second topic again. Thank you, and that's really a wonderful topic. All right, and for the second topic that we are going to bring you today is about the changing landscape of healthcare technologies. So, this session will show an overview of how the applications of technology and machine learning in healthcare is changing, along with where the field stands in terms of global access. And with us to present this topic is an independent developer, a researcher, and also a student, and an active student who is interested in computer science, healthcare, machine learning research, and other emerging fields. And without further ado, let's learn together along with our speaker today, Raghav Subramaniam. Please take over.
Thank you, Philjon. Also thank you to Jeanette for that nice presentation beforehand. And I'll just share my screen quickly so that we can get started.
Okay.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is clear.
Okay. So hi, my name is Raghav Subramaniam, and today I'll be talking about healthcare technologies and some associated developments that have happened in not only the past year, but over the course of a few years, and some things that I believe we can look more into about how we can take modern technology to the extent where we're maximizing patient outcomes without compromising safety. So on this slide, there are a few research papers about machine learning-based detection systems. And why this specifically is important is because in the modern landscape, the case is the same as it was about 50 years ago or even 100 years ago, that we do not have healthcare professionals available for every single person to access regularly. And this is the case in developing countries where, for example, there might not even be the needed level of healthcare professionals in a certain area. Just because of access, maybe you have to drive 50 minutes or um, by walking, it would be much more hours just to get to a single clinician. Or if you look at even major cities, even if there are a larger number of healthcare professionals there, just due to sheer demand. And on top of that, enclosed spaces, there's also global health risks there. I'm sorry, public health risks. And because of that, the healthcare system may be stressed in these certain areas, same with developing nations. So in these kinds of situations, how can we use machine learning as a sort of aid so that there's not this much strain, this much constant strain on these systems? And a lot of people sometimes express concern over complete replacement. However, in the current landscape, it doesn't seem to be the case that we can fully replace these kinds of systems um, with healthcare professionals, that we can replace healthcare professionals with these kinds of systems. Apologies for misspeaking. However, aids are much more realistic, especially because the amount of formal knowledge and the amount of intuition that an actual healthcare professional possesses, that is not yet trained on a singular supposed AI doctor. That kind of entity will take much, much more research to eventually develop. And we also have to ask, do we really need to develop that kind of technology? For now, we have a lot of aids that are both in research and also in industry. In these three pictures, we have a few research papers that focus on the ones that are in research. The um, third one being one that's actually been tested in real patients and found to be um, quite promising for evaluating the specific syndrome in children. And what they did is in Japan, they tested these on children's faces. They would detect disorders by inputting it into this software called Phase 2 gene. This Phase 2 gene was trained on past data for faces that had specific disorders, specific syndromes. And this app was able to use CV to actually detect those in new patients to see if they actually had these. And so what they tested was how accurate it was. And after multiple iterations, one of them actually had a 100% success rate. So 12 out of 12 patients, I believe, were correctly detected. And so that just gives us an idea of how this actually might be able to be expanded and used for preventative care. So if a child, especially as a child, it's important that that early detection is in place as they're especially vulnerable. Can we use that as kind of like this preemptive indicator that somebody, a child specifically, needs to visit a specialist because they're at risk for progression of the specific syndrome? And if you look at the, excuse me, if you look at the other research papers, there's also an example in which just by gait, it is possible for predicting the probability of flat fall. And so by gait, they're measuring walking patterns. And again, it's the same computer vision that was mentioned in the previous research paper. Whereas the previous one was based on static images, this one is based on video, actually tracking the gait of those who might be um, susceptible to flat falls. And here we can actually quantify that risk and figure out how much care should this person require, how much additional care. And in certain cases, is there any like major intervention that needs to be taken? And these can be really important when doctors specifically aren't able to constantly monitor these patients. And so when that's not available, then some of the only alternatives would be to, well, in the past, they were to just either wait until you are able to see a healthcare professional or attempt to learn on your own, which again is a very, very long process, even for people that go down the academic route. And without going down the academic route, just relying on probably internet information, which may not always be the most accurate. Any information is accurate, it may not have the complete context to supplement whatever judgment you're trying to make. So with these machine learning algorithms, it's almost as if a higher judgment was used as sort of a supplement to whatever a patient is trying to communicate with his doctor about, or his or her doctor. And in this specific case, with that gate, they were able to predict whether flat fall was possible, which is obviously something we want to avoid. And in the final article over on the left, this is actually interesting because it does not use computer vision. However, it uses radio signals. And this is something that actually hasn't been used that much well, the majority have been based on, again, CV or just general data sets. This one specifically was able to use radio waves and analyze the breathing signals of patients who were sleeping. And just by using those radio waves, so it was completely non-intrusive, they were able to assess how the disease was progressing and other general characteristics of the patient's health. And that's really interesting for a few major reasons. One is that the doctor doesn't constantly need to keep them in hospital, for example, to monitor them. And second, that it was completely non-intrusive. So is there a way possibly in the future that we could use these kinds of technologies, including by radio waves, which of course the frequency is not enough to considerably cause damage to the human body, and this has been extensively tested over time. That's why we're confident, health professionals are confident giving MRI scans, various different scans. The radio waves are safe, and on top of that, they're easily accessible. Many, many households already have Wi-Fi, various other radio waves. And this specific one was done in a controlled environment, but possibly these sort of breathing detection and other subsidiary processes like this could help us look at different diseases, different disorders, and kind of see how the progression is working. And then a healthcare professional can monitor that wherever they are. It's not necessary that they need to stay at the hospital or stay at the facility to do that. And these, of course, are all preliminary research. They're not fully used in the field yet. However, what is interesting is that on the other side of the academia focused and primarily healthcare professional oriented research is also the consumer oriented end, which is things like wearable devices, mobile applications, as you can see on the left and right. And one of the first images is the Apple Watch, which is quite unique because it was one of the first windows for a patient to give a new face to healthcare as a whole. So patients were now on a daily basis cognizant of various characteristics about their health. For example, heartbeat, for example, EKGs, steps, all these factors that initially a patient might have not had an inside eye into. Maybe they just let the healthcare professional take care of it. Now they have a better interface to display and also graph on a unique UI that is also pleasing for them to see, something that they can interpret easily. And although it might not be as comprehensive as what a healthcare professional might be able to see, it still gives that more commercialized window into it. And that is potentially a problem as well because we don't want health itself to be commercialized and then misinterpreted due to lack of context and lack of formal knowledge that a lot of people, they're not very educated about healthcare just simply because they haven't been able to study it in uh, in a school context or in college, etc. Um, which is why doctors are important because they're able to actually interpret this data. But if the insights from research are able to be brought into consumer devices like these, then it could really help in not putting the brunt of interpreting that data on patients and instead be able to supplement them with real and accurate knowledge based on their personal data. And that personal data, of course, is from these devices. Of course, they are third parties, so there's the data concern as well. We'd hope that they're kept safely, that we have all of the necessary security measures in place. But once that data is there, would it be possible for us to bring in those research-based machine learning methods to give an educated aid based on personalized data? And that goes into this concept of mobile medicine, mobile health, which has a few concerns because it's been over commercialized. But if we take it into the direction of being focused on the patient's welfare and not just on commercial success, then I think it's going to be much more helpful in both increasing access and hopefully also increasing the success of patient outcomes. Because here we gain the preemptive detection that we looked at in the previous research, along with monitoring, both of which can be combined into something that doesn't have to be intrusive, doesn't have to require staying at the health facility. And if you look on the right, if you look at mobile applications, these are also very common in things like Fitbit, Apple Watch. Mobile applications are very common. But again, the question is, are we able to use research-based models, software, infuse so that the patients actually have a better window into what they must do to maintain their holistic health? And something that really needs to be considered when discussing this is equity and early detection. And equity has been a major problem, even if you look at the Apple Watch. It was majority oriented towards wealthy groups and obviously people in developed countries initially. And the problem stems from if healthcare is already most common in these areas, and whereas it's sparse in places like developing countries and those of lower income groups, then should new technology also be oriented solely to them? And that's when you get into wearables costing hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Is it really the best option to develop them with such extensive um, upcharges on top of unnecessary features? And I guess the question would be, is there a way to develop these for the sole purpose of healthcare and not for commercialization? And that's a question that gets into, okay, well, how would a business like that be profitable? Would it be able to maintain itself? But at the same time, we have seen companies in the past that have taken on these kinds of initiatives and that have done it for the greater good and for healthcare, for nonprofit causes, etc., and be able to maintain themselves as a business entity as well. And so, in terms of equity, one of the major insights that companies have used is outsourcing putting the brunt of processing on mobile applications and using the device itself to be as minimal as possible and to be optimized to be used in a large range of environments, at the same time be very cost effective. And that cost effectiveness can come in part due to putting that processing power on mobile phone applications, on cloud computing, etc., so that we don't have to put all of this all of this resource intensive material use all into one combined device that has to be priced at hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. And so if that price reduction is there and the resource efficiency is also there, then these can be used by the market expands by millions because people in developing countries, people of very low income groups can still be able to monitor their own health and be able to take the action that they need to maintain their health and in some cases even save their life. An example I can think of is Google Health. In India, diabetic retinopathy is actually a problem that a lot of people are at risk of facing. And the problem comes in that many people with diabetes don't even know that they have diabetes because in a lot of developing countries, when an individual has dependents, they often don't take the time to check up on themselves and go for medical checkups for themselves, and they devote all their resources to their dependents. So the individual themselves is often having all these disorders or even diseases that they're not aware of at all, just because they haven't been going and prioritizing their own health. And that's also due to distance. Again, some people may have to walk hours just to reach a medical facility. And what Google Health was able to do actually was look at using CV to detect diabetic retinopathy just from the scan of an eye. And why this is interesting is because now everyone does not need to travel hours just to find someone who's specialized, to find an ophthalmologist who can formally diagnose them. Here we can sort of have like a preemptive measure where we can see who may very, very likely have diabetic retinopathy and what steps can we take from there. Once we have step one, then we can look at treatment and we can look at further steps. But the diagnostics, how are we getting to comprehensive diagnostics for a large portion of the population that isn't visiting medical facility on a regular basis? And that's where technology like this, for example, their CV model that was detecting retinopathy just from an eye scan, how these could be helpful in getting a larger population more engaged in their own health and getting them the therapeutics that they need once we're able to identify. And once we're able to identify, then we're able to get into things like wearables, like apps, where we can maintain, where we can constantly track and send that data possibly to a healthcare professional who can then work from there and then provide suggestions, assign further treatments, or even there's some technologies. For example, there's one in oncology where the doctor themselves is given ML generated possible treatments along with explanations and accompanying research. And if that kind of system is in place on a larger scale, then we can just think about how much more efficient our healthcare system could be and how much less stress there would be placed. Along with that, obviously, we get the benefit of more patients being helped. And on top of that, better patient outcomes because, excuse me, they're just so much more bases. We can get more from there being accompanying research, these accompanying suggestions on top of the doctor's original judgment. And on top of that, we have all of this data coming in from those wearable devices, from these CV models, so many other sources. So when all of this is working in tandem, can we create a future where we can not only maintain the same high health standards for the larger global population, but also can we get it at a higher level than it would have been if it was just a medical professional alone? And I think that's a goal that we should absolutely try to work for. And I'm really, really glad that researchers, doctors, scientists across the world are working on this every day. Thank you.
Right. It's wonderful. Like the technologies and the researches are really mind blowing, right? But yeah, the only thing that's needed to be guaranteed is the data safety, right? Like if only it's gonna be like it's gonna become very like impossible to get breached, so that like, everything could work as smoothly as it is. But trust issues are rising up, right? So it's gonna be hard to collect the necessary data to run all those
And then
technology
privacy
upgrades.
concerns too, because even if you look at things like Fitbit, if you look at Apple Watch, all the data that these third-party companies are collecting, they're able to store it. But if you look at healthcare, there's very strict privacy laws in place that kind of prevent you from having this constant access attached to a person where you can access it anywhere. Because a lot of health professionals, even if they attach a device to a patient, sometimes they can only access that at the hospital and at like a specific time. When they're at home, there'll be like firewalls in place where you're not able to access that. So it just comes into this other play of like third-party companies versus healthcare institutions. How do data privacy um, how do data privacy norms work between them? How can we actually find a common ground where is it a consumer product? Is it a healthcare device? Is there something in the middle of that? And I think that's also something interesting that a lot of startups especially are looking into.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, I hope it'll be like developed more accurately in the future because if the like hospitals and healthcare services are able to get past through the like firewalls and all the security systems at home, like it'll be easier for those thefts as well to come along, right? Because they just
Right.
take
But
advantage.
as well as always like prioritizing the privacy of the patient, obviously,
Yeah,
because that's
that's true.
also top priority.
Agreed. All right, that's really mind blowing. That's very interesting topics. Plus the researches that you have shown. Like, are those in line of your current research as well, or what are you currently working as of the moment?
Right. Those weren't my specific research projects, but currently I'm working on processes aided by machine learning.
Uh,
Um, it would be for people with disabilities, it would be aids for them, and they would be assisted by machine learning. It would also be a wearable device. So, for example, in the past, I worked on glasses that you would wear that for people with audio disabilities, they would be able to have a heads-up display that they would just attach to their glasses and they'd be able to see transcribed text for that. So if someone was talking in front of them, although they weren't able to hear it, they'd be able to see the text transcribed in front of them, as well as we'd have an input method on the side, like corded keyboard, along with various shortcuts so that they could give quick responses to them based on the content of that incoming speech.
wow,
That was just
okay.
one of the projects I worked on. Right now, I'm working on prosthetic arms
Mm,
and looking at better machine learning assisted gripping of objects and doing of various actions, how we could do them smoother and more efficiently, and also at a lower cost. That's also a central point that a lot of my work revolves around.
those glasses, like it's giving you subtitles, right? Like it works something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
has it been like materialized or is it in the
It's still in
market?
the prototype. It's still in the prototype. It's not on the market yet.
Ah, I see. I see. Okay, no worries then. So yeah, everybody will be looking forward for those. Do you have let's say newsletters or updates in your LinkedIn profile about the progress of those? Like those are great materials or like technologies you're working or researching on. Like it's really beneficial. So if in case there are anyone or a group of people would be interested on those projects that you are doing, like what do they need to do? Like how will they get in touch with you to collaborate and all those?
Yeah, for sure. Anyone can feel free to get in touch on LinkedIn or my email is also listed on there. And just any ideas or if you'd like to collaborate, I'm always open.
All right, that's perfect then. Okay, I've checked YouTube. We don't have any questions so far, and on live as well. Yeah, anyone would like to ask, feel free to unmute or put it on chat. But everything seems to be fantastic. So, great presentation. And yeah, you can search for Gav Subramaniam on LinkedIn. Send him a message or a connection invite, and he'll be able to respond to your queries if you happen to miss this live session that we have today. The recorded session will be uploaded on YouTube, so feel free to watch it on your most available time with your family as well on a big screen if possible. and help us spread this free knowledge that we are sharing to you. So go and share the recorded sessions into your social media platforms to help our guest speakers as well have additional visibility. So we don't have any questions so far. Anything you'd like to promote before we end the session?
I'm
Forgot?
sorry.
Yeah. Do you have anything to promote? Or anyone would like something we would look forward of your researches, something like that?
Not at the moment. I'd say I if anyone would like to work, I'm always free to if you're messaging me on LinkedIn or emailing me, I'm always respond.
All right, that's fantastic. So, and that actually concludes today's ZIPINAR. So we had interesting topics with our guest speakers, definitely. So if you're interested further to a more deeper talk of the topics that they have shared, make sure to send a connection invite to them or follow them on their social media platform. Uh, Send a friend request and connection invite to them and send them messages, definitely. And also, if you want to go through with us, you can check www.letustalkit.com. Shoot us a message or an email, or you can message us on LinkedIn as well. And we are also available on Facebook. And yeah, you can give us a quick nod to give you details of our guest speakers, or if you wanted to be a guest speaker, you are very welcome. As these webinars are free, you're free to join as a guest speaker, you're free to join as an attendee, and definitely we will share you the best value of knowledge that we could have from our guest speakers. And we would like to invite you again next Wednesday, the same time, 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll bring you two new topics and two new guest speakers, definitely, that will share their personal experiences and point of view as well. And we are happy that we have shared you knowledge today, and we look forward to the next session of Let Us Talk It Zipinar. Thank you so much for coming in today, everyone, and say goodbye for now. But see you again next Wednesday, and keep safe as always. All the best, and goodbye for now. Thanks, Raghav.
Thank you.